Good morning. It is 4:40 in the morning, and anytime it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, that is bad country hour. That's if I can't sleep or I wake up early. This is what I always do. I come and run the camera and I talk about something that's on my mind. And there's a lot on my mind at the moment. So if you have been following the channel closely, and even if you haven't, I'll bring you up to speed. You'll notice that I got myself medicated again, and that I had something like a brush with a relapse, but also something that was not a relapse. And I haven't gone into detail about what that was, really. So I'm going to do that this morning as the morning birds start to chirp behind me and my dog sleeps on the sofa. So, brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bad Country. Okay, this story is going to be absurd. And when I have mentioned it on the channel, a lot of people have already said that what I experienced was not possible. And I encourage them to come and have that argument to my face. And I'll sit with the police who were involved as well. And then that person can say, this thing you're describing did not happen, in front of me, to whom it happened, and a room full of witnesses to whom it kind of indirectly happened. So the context is this. At the beginning of 2025, I was taken on board by this I fought really hard to get this job. And the job was creating a brand new sex toy brand designed, to compete with like Fleshlight and Tenga, if you're familiar with the landscape. And over the course of 7 or 8 months, I did a really, really good job. Like, proud of my work, straight into the portfolio, put my reputation back where I wanted it to be, that kind of level of work. But the work finished in about August last year, October time, August, September, October time. The job was done, and the brand and the business was built. Everything was in place, all the packaging was printed. And then we only had to wait until February this year for the brand to actually launch. And because the brand was headquartered in Shenzhen, in China, I was invited out there. I was flown out. I paid for my ticket, paid for a nice room in a Hilton in Shenzhen. And I was to be there to launch and help to launch the brand within the business, to all the investors and stakeholders and to the wider team and everything. And I was looking forward to it so much. It felt like a monumental moment for me, both professionally, that I was still capable of doing such hard, good work, but also sober-wise, that I was able to see a project through from start to finish and then travel to celebrate the launch. And so excited was my girlfriend to celebrate with me that she paid for her own, she wangled her way to travel with me to Shenzhen. And we were going to spend a week together there, intermittently with me in the office, but also shopping and seeing the city, being travelers again. It would have been the first time that I had traveled like that sober. And it really meant something. And I fucked it all up. So, in the week running up to the traveling out to China to meet my girlfriend there and to celebrate the launch of this new business, I had spun out of control slightly. I was very nervous about the flight and about my sobriety, despite having 2 years of sobriety at this point. Because it's such a big thing in my life, it's hard to ignore it. If I was 2 years sober and wasn't doing a sobriety channel, and sobriety was just in the background of my life, perhaps this might not have happened. But because I have put sobriety right in the foreground of my life, perhaps this was inevitable. So in the days running up to leaving, I had packed my bags, my suitcase was packed. This was how close I was to leaving. And my dog was in the kennels already. I felt like something dark in me returning, some overpowering, some overwhelming voice. My own voice in my own head telling me to fuck things up, telling me to sabotage myself. So what I did was I thought that perhaps to stifle that voice, to stifle the voice that is my own voice telling me to sabotage myself, I would, instead of buying alcohol and having a relapse, I would buy Percocet. And bizarrely, here where I live in Cyprus, you can just buy that over the counter. It's under a different name, but you don't need a prescription for it. You can just walk into a pharmacy and ask for it, or even some places just take it off the shelf. And the way I did it was, I live on the ocean, the seafront here on the Mediterranean, and the pharmacy is about a mile down the road. And I thought that after everything was in place, my dog was in the kennels and my stuff was packed, I would go and get this packet of codeine and paracetamol, I think it is, and then take 4 immediately. And then by the time I had walked along the coast, along the ocean, I would have come up a little bit and would be safe to travel. So I took 4, and that is the last thing I remember for 5 or 6 days. So I've had to piece together what happened retroactively. I've had to put it together in conversations with the police, my local police station, been there in person, and with a clinic that I was taken to help treat me. Now, this is where things get contentious, because a few people, when I've mentioned this on the channel, have told me that the thing I'm describing simply doesn't exist. But it does. So what happened was I ended up taking, because I've got no experience with things like codeine or opiates. Like, I'm just such a baby with stuff like that. With alcoholism, I know where I stand and I can talk about it with some authority. But with opioids and even psychiatric medication, I just don't know enough. So what had happened was that I hadn't taken 4 Percocets just to calm me down and feel a little bit of euphoria in order to allow me to travel. Because I had to fly to Dubai first, where I had an 11-hour layover, which is why I was nervous. Because airports, for me, are major relapse factors. There's nothing to do in an airport. You sit and you wait and you stress. And you have stupid problems like your phone battery dying and all of this. For people like me, an airport is hell, because that is alcohol. That's where it happens. That's where a relapse is going to happen. And I knew that, and I had to avoid it. And I was going to do anything to avoid fucking this trip up by drinking. But in the end, I had taken something like 36 Percocets. Look, I'll tell you so that I don't trip over my words anymore. In Cyprus, it's called Percoten, and that's how I'm going to refer to it from now on. So I took something like 36 Percoten in the space of about 15 hours, which is not enough to kill you by overdose, but is apparently enough to induce what's called codeine mania. Okay, that's what happened to me. because I didn't stop taking them on the onset. I had no idea I was so wildly out of control. In fact, I was driving around, texting my girlfriend, telling her not to call me right now because I was driving. That's the one memory that I have, is angrily texting my girlfriend to leave me the fuck alone because I was driving. Stupid. Okay, so to explain, to back up what I was experiencing, I was experiencing what's called codeine mania. That is an established medical term. If you doubt me, please, you are welcome to look it up and then challenge me in the comments. But this is what happened. Codeine mania is a kind of like cluster of neurological, behavioral side effects that happen when you take codeine at very high levels, and it particularly happens to people with mood disorders already, which I have. I have a major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety and PTSD. So, a perfect candidate for things to go wrong exactly when they shouldn't. So codeine is a little like alcohol. It's metabolized in the liver, which can produce in some people a psychoactive response involving extreme hallucinations, deeply paranoid delusions, racing thoughts, racing heart, panic and fear, as well as impulsivity and kind of grandiosity as well. I had all of this. According to the witnesses, I had all of it. So the first thing that happened was my girlfriend spotted that something was wrong just by the tone of my text messages. And she called the local police, who came and they arrived and had a conversation with me. And I remember them being in my house, but nothing more than that. And I had according to them, I had a perfectly reasonable conversation with them about how I was fine. I was just nervous about flying. I had a big trip planned. My girlfriend is overreacting, this kind of thing. And they believed me because I wasn't drunk and I was able to hold a conversation. So they came here, had a conversation with me, and then left. And I can only plug in the next part of the story by picking it apart from what I was told by a local psychiatric clinic. They have told me, believably, that when I arrived, I was in handcuffs. And I was convinced I was an elderly man. I had handcuffs, but I was holding a walking stick. And I was convinced I was an elderly man who had hurt his leg and was walking with a pronounced limp. And that tracks, because at that time I'd had gout in my left foot, which is such an old worldy sounding problem. It's like saying I've got scurvy or something. But I had gout, and gout is an extremely painful condition. It feels like a broken toe. And I think that had fed into this weird delusion that I was an elderly man with a walking stick and then I was being unfairly treated. But they could also tell me, they also knew that I wasn't drunk. They breathalyzed me and blood tested me, and both came back 0. And at this point, my girlfriend, who must have been just in such a state of disappointment and terror and just the thought of here we go again, she had managed to get in contact with the clinic that was holding me. And they had medicated me at this point. They had given me some diazepam or something to reduce the delusions. And I still have no memory of this, but they had been speaking to her and told her that, yep, I had blown a 0, there was no alcohol involved. And frankly, at this point, if they had just sent me home, I probably still would have had time to get to the airport and travel. But it was beyond that now. The journey was already ruined. And I was at some point discharged myself and found my way back to my home where I just blacked out because I'd been awake a long time. And my girlfriend, now knowing that I was discharged from the clinic and not being able to contact me, at some point I had lost my MacBook and my phone and the little DJI camera that I used to film my YouTube shorts. That was gone too. That's most painful for me. A phone and a laptop can be replaced, but that camera really meant a lot. Because it allowed me to speak to you, it allowed me to do this. And she had to call the police again to go and conduct another welfare check on me. And the police broke in through my back door. Sounds rude when I say it like that. And opened the sliding doors and found their way in, and I was asleep on the floor, out cold, when they found me. And they woke me up, had a conversation with me, and found that I was okay. The reason why that I hadn't woken up when they were smashing through the door was because I'd had my headphones in. Even though I'd lost my phone, I still had my headphones in, my noise-cancelling headphones. So I hadn't heard them anyway. And they sat me up and had a conversation with me, hung around for half an hour to make sure I actually was okay, which by then, now I'm starting to remember what happened. I was okay. And they told me to go to this clinic that they had previously taken me to. And I did it immediately. And this is now my first memory of this event, 5 days after it started. I now have a memory of walking into that clinic where they all recognized me. But I had no idea that they recognized me because I had no memory of it. And I was sat down with a doctor, the same guy who would later tell me that I had been handcuffed when I'd come in and was pretending to be an old man. It was him who designed a course of treatment for me, which involved getting back on the antidepressants, a short course of diazepam just to help ease me into the depressants without falling back into opioids or alcohol. That course is finished now. I should reassure you by saying I'm no longer on the benzodiazepines, but I am going to continue with the course of treatment at that clinic. I am unbelievably disappointed in myself to the point that this is the first time I've spoken about it openly. I haven't even had this conversation with my parents or with my girlfriend who is asleep upstairs. She will see this video before I publish it, and this is partially my apology to her. It was supposed to be such a big celebration of having really turned a corner. And I suppose even now, even after so much hard work and so much time, it was still a corner that I'm not yet ready to turn. That I need to go back to the basics, start over, and make sure nothing like this ever happens again. It's the second time in my life that I can imagine someone waiting for me at an airport and I will never arrive. So it's back to the start for me. I certainly obviously don't consider that episode sober, but because it wasn't alcohol, I don't also feel capable of relinquishing the 2 and a bit years that I've got. So for now, unless someone makes a really, really powerful argument in the comments to counter, I'm going to cling desperately to my 2 years of sobriety from alcohol and write this off just as a terrible, terrible mistake. instead of a relapse or a backslide. What do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? I'm not sure. But one of the things it goes to show is that people like me that are depressive alcoholics who have experienced delirium tremens are particularly susceptible to this kind of mania. It's a real danger for us. Excessive dopaminergic states in our brain can induce that kind of delusional mania in ways that it doesn't happen for other people. Anybody else who takes 36 Percocets will throw up and black out. Probably, I'm not quite sure about that, but they won't enter this kind of manic state that I was in. And they won't continue to function just running on pure dopamine. And another learning from that, after I've been back to that clinic several times, I like it. I am incredibly fortunate in some senses that I live in a relatively remote, well, not really, like I don't live in a big city, and I live on a Mediterranean island with not a fantastic infrastructure. But to have a mental health clinic specializing in addiction and recovery, literally walking distance from my house. I say this every now and then. My mum once told me that I could slip in shit and come up smelling of roses. And that is what my luck has been like with this. I wish it had never happened, but if it did, it was the best version of it that could happen, because I am, after all, alive to tell you about it. One of the things that it can reveal is a bipolar disorder. And a lot of you have been kind of attempting to diagnose me in the comments. I've never sought a diagnosis. A lot of you listen to the way I talk and the way that my thoughts organize and are quick to diagnose me with ADHD or bipolarism. And this is yet another clue that perhaps there is something neurologically inconsistent or neurodivergent about me. But in the end, any diagnosis that I get makes no difference. It makes no difference to my girlfriend, who had to spend a week alone in China, worrying about me. What a fucking disgusting piece of behavior. And of course, to my long-suffering parents, who throughout the course of my actual active addiction, through the course of my alcoholism, had always felt entirely powerless. They had to go through it all again because my girlfriend had been freaking out to them, had been looking to them for support and help, and they can't do anything. So this video is an explanation to you, my fine audience, about why Bat Country was different for a while, why it was quiet, and why I wasn't quite myself when I came back. But it's also a really sincere apology to my girlfriend and to my parents and to the business who put so much trust in me. We live and we learn. And what I've learned is I cannot take these kinds of risks anymore. Nothing like this can afford to happen again. And now, it's not even just alcohol. Thank you for watching. And as always, good luck out there.